Ever wondered how Wall Street got its start? What if I told you the blueprint for our modern stock markets wasn't forged in the skyscrapers of New York, but in the sacred courtyards of ancient temples? It sounds crazy, right? But stick with me, because today we're uncovering the hidden economic history of temples and how these spiritual centers were actually the world's first financial powerhouses. Let's travel back in time. Long before banks, credit cards, or stock tickers, there were temples. These weren't just quiet places for prayer and reflection. They were bustling, dynamic centers of community life. Think of a grand temple in ancient India, Greece, or Mesopotamia. People from all walks of life would journey for days, even weeks, on pilgrimages. They came seeking blessings, guidance, and spiritual fulfillment. And when they came, they brought offerings: gold, silver, grains, livestock. These donations, accumulating over centuries, transformed temples into incredibly wealthy institutions. They weren't just sitting on a pile of gold. The temple priests and administrators had to manage these vast assets. They became the earliest accountants, portfolio managers, and bankers. They would lend grain to farmers in times of drought, charging a small interest, ensuring the community's food security. They would loan money to merchants to fund trading expeditions to distant lands. In essence, they were providing capital and the lifeblood of any economy. This system of lending and borrowing, managed by a trusted central institution, was a primitive form of our modern banking system. But it doesn't stop there. Where there are people and money, markets will follow. The areas surrounding major temples naturally evolved into vibrant marketplaces. Imagine the scene: thousands of pilgrims arriving for a festival. They need food, lodging, souvenirs, and religious items. Local artisans, farmers, and merchants set up shop right outside the temple walls to cater to this massive influx of visitors. This created a self-sustaining economic ecosystem. The temple attracted the people, and the people attracted the businesses. Trade flourished. This created a powerful feedback loop. The more prosperous the market became, the more donations flowed into the temple. The wealthier the temple grew, the more it could invest back into the community, funding public works like roads, irrigation canals, and wells. This is exactly what governments and large corporations do today. They invest in infrastructure to stimulate economic growth. The temple wasn't just a passive recipient of wealth, it was an active driver of economic development. But perhaps the most fascinating role these temples played was providing something intangible yet priceless: trust. In an era without formal contracts or legal systems as we know them, business was risky. How could you trust a stranger to repay a loan or deliver goods as promised? The temple provided the answer. Transactions were often made in the presence of the temple deity, under oath. Breaking that oath wasn't just a legal issue, it was a grave spiritual offense. This divine oversight gave transactions a layer of spiritual legitimacy and enforced a code of ethical conduct. It was this foundation of trust that allowed commerce to expand beyond small, close-knit communities. This concept of a central, trusted authority overseeing transactions is the very bedrock upon which modern stock exchanges are built. The New York Stock Exchange, at its core, is an institution that provides trust and legitimacy to financial transactions. The connection between rulers and temples further solidified this economic power. Kings and emperors would pour immense resources into building and maintaining magnificent temples. Why? It wasn't just about piety. A grand temple was a symbol of the king's power, stability, and prosperity. It was a massive state-funded project that created thousands of jobs for architects, masons, sculptors, and laborers. This was an ancient form of economic stimulus. By funding a temple, a king was not only earning spiritual merit, but also directly investing in his kingdom's economy, boosting employment and circulating wealth. This intertwined governance, religion, and economics, creating a framework where the spiritual and material worlds were deeply connected. Now, let's fast forward to the present day. You might think this is all ancient history, but the economic power of temples is still very much alive. In many parts of the world, especially in Asia, temples continue to be powerful economic engines. Take a look at major pilgrimage sites today. They attract millions of visitors annually, creating a booming tourism industry. Hotels, restaurants, travel agencies, and souvenir shops all thrive because of the temple. It is estimated that the temple economy in India alone contributes around $40 billion to the nation's GDP. That's a staggering number. This modern temple economy creates a ripple effect. The construction of a new, large temple often leads to significant infrastructure upgrades in the area. New roads are built, public transport is improved, and utilities are modernized. This not only benefits the pilgrims, but also raises the standard of living for the local residents. Real estate values in the vicinity skyrocket as demand for housing and commercial space increases. This development creates a surge in construction jobs and long-term employment in the hospitality and retail sectors. Small businesses and local vendors find a ready market for their goods and services, from flowers and incense to handcrafted goods. It's a complete economic ecosystem centered around a spiritual hub. Of course, this rapid development isn't without its challenges. The surge in property values can sometimes price out long-time residents. And managing the immense wealth and economic activity of these temples requires careful oversight from government bodies to ensure transparency and prevent mismanagement. The relationship between state and temple is still a delicate balancing act, just as it was for ancient kings. So, the next time you see a headline about the stock market or hear economists discussing GDP growth, remember the ancient temples. These sacred spaces were more than just places of worship. They were the world's first banks, venture capital firms, and market regulators. They provided capital, fostered trade, built infrastructure, and, most importantly, established the foundation of trust that makes our complex modern economies possible. They taught us that spirituality and prosperity are not opposing forces, but two sides of the same coin, deeply intertwined in the story of human civilization. The echoes of those ancient temple bells can still be heard in the ringing of the opening bell on Wall Street today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through economic history. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into the hidden histories that shape our world. See you in the next video.